We're really happy to have Chia Chong with us this morning. So she's joining us for the very first session today. And Chia, just to let you all know a little bit about Chia and her background. She's a teacher trainer. She's based in York. That's where she's joining us today. And she's an intercultural skills teacher and materials writer. She's been teaching English teaching, a professional award-winning resident blogger since 2012, and she's a featured columnist in the bi-monthly magazine. So Chia, a regular ELT conference speaker, holding a Delta and a Master's in Applied Linguistics and ELT. We can't wait to hear more from you about developing a growth mindset amongst teachers. So without further ado, everyone, welcome, and Chia, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. That was a lovely introduction. So anyways, my name is Chia Chong. As Rebecca said, I'm based in York in the United Kingdom. For those who are wondering where York is, we are not in New York, we're in Old York, which is between London and Edinburgh, sort of somewhere in the middle. And today I'm here to talk to you about developing a growth mindset, not just with your students, but amongst teachers, with your colleagues, in your staff room, and professionally developing yourself as well. Without further ado, let's begin. It's great to see. Oh, thank you for saying York is beautiful. I've heard these quotes in staff rooms I've visited many a times. Let me read some of them out to you. Oh, that just won't work with my students. My students are just different. Or, oh, I only do one-to-one classes. I don't do group classes. Now, these are real quotes that I have heard from real teachers, so I did not make any of these up. And as I read them, I would like you to think about your reactions to them. What would you say if a colleague came to you and said these things? Oh, I've always done it this way. I don't need any new ways. It's always worked this way. So, there's no need to fix what's not broken. Or simply, that's just not how we do things here. That might be the way you do things in your previous school, but not here. Oh, I'm too old to be learning new technology. In fact, I once heard a teacher said, I've been learning so many things over my years of experience, my years of teaching. When does it ever stop? Can I just stop learning now because I'm just tired of learning. I suppose it's funny saying it to you guys because you're here attending a Macmillan webinar, which suggests to me that you love learning and you are into your own professional development. So I'm suspecting that you are not one of the people who would say, oh, no, I'm too old to be learning and I can't do that and I won't do that. And the final quote here I have is, oh, I'm not the business type. I know nothing about finance or business, so how can I teach business English? Now, you could substitute the word business type for anything. You can say, oh, I'm not the academic type. How can I teach academic English? Or, oh, I'm not the negotiating type. I don't negotiate. I don't talk about money ever. So how can I teach negotiations? Or, oh, I'm not the extroverted type. I don't do presentations. So how can I teach English for presentations? Etc., etc. Now, it's lovely that some of you in the chat room are saying, if you stop learning, you might as well stop teaching. And someone else says, I think James says, he always likes a new challenge. And that's lovely to hear. But I'm sure we all recognize the fact that not all teachers feel that way. Not all teachers treat learning as a new challenge that they love having. So what is a growth mindset? What does it mean to have a growth mindset? Now, there are more than 100 people in the room today. Just to get a feel from you guys, okay, do you know or have you heard of the term growth mindset? And very briefly, what do you know about growth mindset? So using the chat box, very briefly, have you heard of growth mindset? What do you know about it? Go. Yes, okay. So a lot of you have heard of the growth mindset. Some of you are saying yes. Oh, very good. Someone's typed Carol Dweck, who is the founder of the term growth mindset. And if you know, oh, someone's read her book as well. Brilliant. At the end of the webinar, I will give you some links to continue reading about growth mindset. And one of the links is a TED talk by Carol Dweck, and also a link to her book, which someone said in the chat room that they have read. Yeah, okay, some of you have not really heard about it, don't really know about it. Okay, so what is a growth mindset? Change of thinking, knowing that you can always get better. Okay. Is it a type of continual professional development? It's not a type of continual development, but it is linked to professional development. Okay, so there are a fair number of people who are not familiar with it, and some of you who are very familiar with it, who have read the book, etc. So let's have a very quick run through of what a growth mindset is and what it isn't. So to start with, I've got this wonderful quote. Now, Paul Arden is an author, but he doesn't actually write about growth mindsets. He's actually an author of marketing books. But one of his books, one of the titles of his books is It's Not How Good You Are, It's How Good You Want to Be. And that, to me, although it's a marketing book, embodies the growth mindset. It's not how good you already are. It's how good you can be, how good you want to be, believing that you can grow, and therefore a growth mindset, believing you can grow into becoming good in anything that you choose to be. And that is the mindset that we want our students, but in today's webinars, also our teachers to have. So what does this actually mean? Now, here are some beliefs about growth and fixed mindset. Okay, we're going to go through them, and you're going to tell me whether it's a feature or a thinking of a growth mindset or someone with a fixed mindset. So let's start with the first one. Learning is easier for smart people. Would that be a growth mindset thinking or a fixed mindset thinking? So the answers are pouring in very, very quickly. Someone's just said, no. So it's interesting to hear that Jane, who said no, believes that this is not what she believes in. Yes, you're all right. This is a fixed mindset opinion that learning is easier for smart people. Because learning anything new is going to be difficult. It's going to take effort, whether you are smart or not. And it is, yes, and smart people can be lazy too. Absolutely, Jane. So learning is not necessarily easier for smart people. Of course, as teachers, we all know that motivation is key. You could almost substitute smart with motivated and say learning is easier for motivated people. And that would be much more true than learning is easier for smart people. So this is a fixed mindset kind of opinion or belief. Let's have a look at the next one. Failure and progress are opposites. Would that be a fixed or a growth mindset belief? Okay, a lot of you are saying fixed. Alexandra now says no. Okay, yes. Absolutely, yes, Jane. Oh, you're saying all the right things here, Jane. Failure represents learning steps. Absolutely. Failure is not something that is undesirable. Failure is not something that is ugly. Failure is necessary because without failure, how do we learn? We can't always expect to be successful immediately. So it is of a fixed mindset belief that failure is undesirable, mistakes are bad, and failure and progress are opposites. They are not opposites. They are friends. Absolutely, Sonia. They are friends because failure helps progress. Failure is necessary for progress. Jane says, Woody Allen said, if you're not failing, you're not going anywhere. Lovely quote. I like that. I shall put that in the next webinar. The more time and effort I put into something, the more I will achieve. Is this a fixed mindset or a growth mindset belief? Mm-hmm. Yes, you're all on the right track. It is a growth mindset belief. The idea is that if you want to be good at something, you've got to put effort into it. You know, you don't just naturally fall into something and go, look at me, I'm an expert at it. Well, some people might, but in most cases, if you want to be good at something, if you want to grow, you have to put time and effort to cultivate that growth. The more you cultivate it, the more you achieve. Absolutely. Oh, you're all fantastic students. Let's move on to the next point. Some people are just really talented at some things. Fixed mindset or growth mindset? Oh, so a lot of people are saying fixed. Some are admittedly saying both. But yes, Sarah says, hang on, it's fixed, but it's true that some people have a true talent. It's interesting because a lot of you are saying fixed, some of you are saying growth, some of you are saying both. Now, I'll be very honest with you, that was a trick question. A trick question because, not because it's not a belief, but it kind of is a belief because some people believe that, oh, if you're talented, then you'll be good at things. You know, some people are just really talented at mathematics, so they are, you know, naturally good at mathematics. Some people are talented at languages, so they learn languages very quickly. Um, Carol Dweck has said that this is often a myth, that it is a fixed mindset belief. It is not just a fixed mindset belief. So to those people who said sometimes both, you are right. It is neither a growth or a fixed mindset belief. Some people are really just talented at some things. But like Jane said earlier in the chat box, they can also be lazy. So you could be very talented and lazy and therefore not grow. Or you could be not talented to start with, like I'm really bad at mathematics. But if I work hard at it and I put some effort into it, I can become very good at it. So I might not start off as talented at something, but I can become good at something simply by cultivating it, simply by putting more time and effort into it. Now, Eleanor, I'm not sure if you're saying it's common knowledge whether that people are talented or common knowledge that we have to put effort into it. But I think what Carol Dweck is saying is don't believe that talent, the concept of talent belongs to a fixed mindset. It's not. Some people are talented and some people might pick up something much more quickly at the beginning. But that doesn't mean that you can't get better if you are supposedly not talented. So this is neither a fixed mindset or growth mindset belief. This is a myth often believed to be a fixed mindset belief, but it's not true. There are people who are just talented. How about this one? Challenges and setbacks are opportunities for learning. Fixed or growth mindset? Okay, so this is a simple one, a fairly simple one. It is a growth mindset belief, looking at failure, looking at challenges, looking at setbacks as an opportunity for growing, an opportunity to learn something, looking at mistakes as good. And that's what I tell my students all the time. Mistakes are good. I want you to make mistakes because if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn. So very much a growth mindset belief. Negative feedback is undesirable. Fixed mindset or growth mindset? Thank you. Yes, Isabel, mistakes are an inherent part of learning. So, someone who believes that challenges and setbacks are opportunities for learning can't possibly also believe that negative feedback is undesirable because we want feedback. Perhaps we won't call them negative feedback, we'll call it constructive feedback, exactly like Craig says, or we'll call it constructive feedback or advancing feedback or developmental feedback, which some people use. Um, Jane, what do you mean by chocolate cake without errors? I'm not sure what that means. Maybe you can expand on it a little bit. But while Jane is expanding on it, let's move on to the next point. Oh, hang on. Greta says depends on the amount of it. I suppose if someone overwhelms you with a lot of negative feedback and, you know, throws it at you, then you can get demotivated by it. Definitely. So the person giving feedback needs to be very aware of fixed and growth mindsets and and very aware of the kind of mindset they want to cultivate through the feedback they're giving, which we'll be looking at later on in the webinar. I see Jane is saying that some cultures have a negative attitude with respect to making errors. You are absolutely right. Which brings me very nicely to a little anecdote. I once had a student, and he was a one-to-one student. I won't say what country he is from, because it again ties back to what Jane says about culture. And he was convinced that he would never learn English, but his parents, who were very rich, or who are very rich, had offered him a Porsche if he got into a British university. So he was trying really hard to pass his IELTS with a decent enough score to get into British university. But his mindset was, look, I'll never be good at English. I'll never be good at anything. My mummy says that I'm not the studying type. And that's a very typical fixed mindset feedback. You're not the studying type, so why bother? You're not the type of person who would be able to be clever. You're not the clever type of person. So, go do something else. That's very much a fixed mindset belief. Why fixed? Because your belief is you're this type of person. You're fixed in that box of being this type of person. You cannot get out of that box. And so I tried really hard to talk to him about how, there's no such thing as being not a studying type, and that if he puts enough effort in, he would get the result that he wants. And I even asked him the question, have you ever, worked really hard for something and enjoyed the results of it? And he said, he was very young, and he said, no, I've never done that. So I said, look, the fruits are much sweeter if you put in, lots of effort. So we worked really hard together, and eventually he got an IELTS 6.5, and he was thrilled. He said it was the first thing he had ever achieved on his own. And he got into a university, and he got his Porsche. Yes, absolutely. A story of ugly ducklings becoming swans, like Margarita is saying. So the belief that our brains can grow. Yes, it's a growth mindset thing. Our brains are not in one way, oh, you are this type of person, you are only talented in that, and you can't do anything else. No, our brains can grow. Our brains are elastic, are flexible. And even if the example I gave you was my mathematical ability, my mathematics ability, it wasn't very good to start with, but with lots and lots of practice, we can get that mathematical part of our brain to become stronger, because they are like muscles. We can build those muscles and get them to grow. And this, for those people who said at the beginning that they were not familiar with the growth mindset, this is one of the key foundations of growth mindset beliefs, that our brains are elastic, that they can grow, and we can work our brains like a muscle to become good at something that we were not good at to start with. Yes, Alberto, practice makes perfect. Absolutely. How about this one? A genius doesn't have to work hard to be good at something. This ties back to what Jane was saying earlier. Some geniuses, some clever people can be lazy. And yes, perhaps if you're a genius at the beginning, you don't work hard and you still get good results because you're a genius. But over time, if you don't work hard, even a genius can, can be lazy and not develop and not grow. So yes, this is an absolute fixed mindset belief. Let's get rid of this belief. And yes, Sonia says it's a disaster. Yes, it absolutely is a disaster. Finally, this belief, talents and abilities can be developed. Now, this ties in with our brains being flexible, our brains being like muscles. Our talents and our abilities, like muscles, can be developed, can grow. Now, some of you might say, hey, this is really simple. I knew that. But interestingly, our education system, our upbringing, the societal influences have taught us all from a very young age, like my student, that you're either this type of person or that type. You're either talented at art or you're talented at mathematics. You're either the scientific type or the artistic type. You're either good at languages or you're bad at languages. We are told these things again and again through perhaps praises and criticisms that were not meant to shape us, but have shaped us along the way. And so, although the concept might seem simple, it is not something that we all practice all of the time. So, just to recap for those who are less familiar with the growth and fixed mindset, here we go. This is a recap of what we've just done. A fixed mindset person believes that learning is easier for smart people, whereas a growth mindset person believes that our brains can grow. Fixed mindset believes negative feedback is undesirable, but a growth mindset believes that time and effort, like someone just said here, equals skill, achievements. The more I put time and effort in, the more I will achieve. Fixed mindset believes that failure is the opposite of progress, but a growth mindset person believes that talents and abilities can be developed. A fixed mindset person believes that a genius doesn't have to work hard, whereas a growth mindset person believes challenges and setbacks are opportunities for learning. Fixed mindset person might believe some people are just really talented and that's just the way it is, but then a growth mindset person believes the same too, because those two things, the fact that people are just talented has nothing to do with fixed or growth mindset. You can be talented, but you can be lazy, or you cannot be talented to start with, but you can grow into becoming very good at something. So, speaking of yourselves, how do you perceive effort? Now, Craig's already said that talent plus effort, or talent times effort equals skill. What do you think of, how do you think of effort? Is it A, fruitless, not worth it? C, we can't be very good at it. Someone else would be so much better. Or it's something we expect if we want to develop. Now, again, all of you are here for the webinar, which suggests to me that you are all passionate about developing. You all want to develop and you're enthusiastic about your professional development. So I'm guessing that that's why most of you are going to pick D. But my question is, when your director of studies, your principal of the school, your boss, your manager comes to you and says, there's this particular class that I would like you to take next month, whether it be a business English class, a presentation class, a teacher training of some sort that you've never done before, an academic English class, a class that sort of intimidates you because you've never done it before. Do you say, all right, I'm going to roll my sleeves up, let's develop together? Or do you say, oh, isn't there someone else in the staff room who can do this much better? I mean, Jennifer has done a lot of academic English classes. Shouldn't she be the one that you ask? Now, in this webinar, of course, we're all enthusiastic about it. And, yes, well done for being here at 6 a.m. Hurrah, good for you. Exactly. So you all are the D sort of person because you're all here in the webinar. But to be honest, we all know teachers who are not the D sort of person, not the growth mindset sort of person. There are a lot of other teachers who are the people who would say A, B, and C. So what can we do to help them? When I was growing up in Singapore, there was a school that had this motto. It's not my school, but there was a school with this motto, nil sine labore, which is Latin for nothing without labor. And I always thought that that was one of the best school mottos that I had ever heard, because that's exactly what a growth mindset is about. If you want to be good at something, you've got to work hard at it. You've got to put in effort, because nothing is without labor. One of the other brilliant quotes I've heard, which I've kept with me all through my life, is victories that come cheap are cheap. And that is so true. Because the victories that you earn through hard work and effort are the victories that you hold close to your heart. Some of you might have read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, The Story of Success. It is not an ELT book, it's about becoming successful. And one of the wonderful takeaway points that I got from reading this book is the 10,000 hour rule. Basically, Malcolm Gladwell states that if you want to become an expert at something, not just good at something, but an expert at something, You just have to do it for 10,000 hours. So anyone who puts 10,000 hours into anything can become an expert at it. I am a late bloomer when it comes to driving. I never learned to drive until 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, I realized that my life depended on being able to drive because I had children, and being in York, it was just impossible to be taking them to their lessons on the bus. I was very, very negative about it. I said, oh, I'm just very bad at spatial recognition. I'm very bad at directions. I can't park the car ever because I can't judge, spaces. And I was having a very fixed mindset about my driving ability. Oh, I'm just not the kind of person who can do it. And I'm so old now. It's just, I can't learn a new skill because I'm too old for this. And someone said to me, remember the 10,000 hour rule, and bang, it hit. Yes. Hey, if I drive for 10,000 hours, I will become an expert at driving. And I put that, I remembered that. And that kind of pushed me forward. And eventually, I passed my driving test, and now I would like to say I'm very confident behind the wheel, and I have changed my life now being able to drive. So I think what I'm trying to say is we might embrace the growth mindset. I talk about the growth mindset all the time. But when it came to driving a car, suddenly I had a fixed mindset. So someone with a growth mindset might not have a growth mindset all of the time. It sometimes can be quite difficult to have a growth mindset about every single thing you're facing. We might tell our students, come on, have a growth mindset. You're not good at grammar, but you can become good at it. But then we ourselves sneakily say things like, oh, I'm not good at painting. Don't ask me to paint. I don't know how to paint. I can do stick people. That's it. So don't beat yourself up about it, because sometimes we don't have a growth mindset in every part of our life. But we can try to remember to try and have a growth mindset. So for me, it was the driving. Saying things like, oh, I've got bad sense of direction, I don't recognize spaces easily, to stop myself from saying that and say, wait a minute, I talk about the growth mindset, and here I am having a very fixed mindset about driving. So stop for a moment, let's change the mindset and remember the 10,000 hour rule, and let's go for it. So all of you here today might be very motivated with professional development, but you might also catch yourselves sometimes having a fixed mindset about some things. So it's important to think about it and think about your mindset, whatever you're approaching. That is true, Nikki, that every student is different. So let's think about how we can actually implement this. Now, because my talk is more about having a growth mindset in the staff room and with colleagues, with teachers, let's just have a look at giving and getting feedback as teachers. Now, obviously, you could apply this to students as well, but for the purpose of this webinar, let's focus on the teachers. So, how often do you get feedback? Do you get it regularly? Some schools have a once in 6 months observation type rule. Some people ask for feedback and ask to be observed. So how often do you get feedback? Do you get feedback from your students or from your line managers? If you get feedback, is it usually focused on the results, or is it focused on the process? Are your managers mainly concerned about the pass rate of exams that you're getting your students to how the exams that you're getting your students to take? Or are they concerned about the process, the kind of methodology or pedagogy that you're using? Now, a lot of you are talking about surveys and student feedback. Yes. So a lot of courses have a survey at the end of the course to ask students for feedback, to ask students, how did I do? What did you think of the course? Now, the question obviously is, do you ask students for their feedback at the end of a course? Do you also ask for students' feedback in the middle of the course? Because the middle of the course can be important, because that allows you to tweak and change the rest of the course based on some of their feedback. Um, Someone in the chat box said that students can't see the process, so they can only see the results. I kind of beg to differ because I talk to my students about processes a lot. I talk to them about pedagogy a lot. When I apply a new method, whether I use task-based learning or dogma or any method that I choose to employ in the classroom, I often talk to them about it. I don't believe in walking around in mysterious ways, expecting students to just trust me. I talk to them about why. I talk to them about the pedagogy behind why we're doing it, and the process. Um, and obviously, again, I monitor how they're coping with the process. But let's have a look at feedback from our line managers. Feedback from managers, feedback from directors of studies, principals. How often do you get those kinds of feedback? And do they normally focus on results, or are they looking at the process as well? Now, this is important now. Do your efforts to do something you're not good at get recognized? So, when you say to your director of studies, when you say to your manager, I've never done an IELTS class before, I would like to try one. Or, you know what? I'm not, I don't feel like I'm very good at teaching academic English, so I want to do it. Does your boss, your manager, your principal recognize that this is a good thing? Do they say, wow, look at Craig. He's really trying to do something he's not good at. Wow, fantastic, Craig. Well done. I'm going to, recognize the effort, and I'm going to offer you more opportunities and more support. I'm going to support you when you're trying to do things that you're not good at. Now, the question is, how is constructive feedback given? Some people call it negative feedback. How do they give you that feedback? Someone said earlier in the chat box, yeah, you can't give too much constructive feedback. You can't give too much negative feedback at one go because it's overwhelming. So as a manager, as a teacher trainer, how can you shape your feedback to give it in such a way that doesn't overwhelm the teacher, that doesn't make the teacher or the trainee feel like they're being bombarded with negativity? So here are some examples. What do you think of this particular feedback? Hey, you're really good at this. You've got a real talent for this. Now, according to Carol Dweck, although this is, fantastic feedback, and if you get this feedback, you probably feel really good about yourself, but it is considered a feedback of a fixed mindset. You're good, you're not good. You're talented, you're not talented. It doesn't quite go anywhere. So if you're a teacher trainer giving feedback to your trainee, or if you're a manager giving feedback to your teacher, how about this instead? You're really good at this. You must have worked really hard to accomplish that, or some variation of it. You're really good at this. I saw you really hard at it. You're really good at this. I noticed that you took on something that you were a bit afraid of, and you became very good at it. So recognizing not just, hey, you're talented, full stop, but recognizing the hard work, recognizing the courage to take on something that they were afraid of, something a challenge that they were not good at. Better than sugarcoating. Yes, that's definitely true. Growth mindset speakers like Carol Dweck talk about research findings done with children. Now, it shows that children are praised for their intelligence, are more likely to choose future tasks that will make them look smart. Whereas if you praise the child for their effort, then they are more likely to choose a task that is challenging. Isn't that funny? Because if you keep praising someone saying, oh, you're so talented at something, you're so smart, you're so clever, then they're more likely to choose future tasks that are easy to do to make them look clever. Whereas if you praise your students and your children for the effort, for the courage, for trying, then they're more likely to pick a task that might not be so easy. Also, children praised for their intelligence are said to enjoy the task less. It's almost like praising them for their intelligence makes the students want more of that kind of praise. And so they start to pick easy tasks just so that they can get the praise. So they're enjoying the task less because their focus, their motivation is to get the praise at the end of the task. They're focused on the end of that journey and not the journey itself, if that makes sense. Also, children praised for their intelligence are less likely to persist on tasks. So if a task becomes challenging, if a task becomes difficult, they are less likely to continue. They might go, hey, I'm not going to get any praise for doing this because I'm finding it difficult. So let's just abandon it and find something easier to do, something where I'm more likely to get praise from. Yes, absolutely. So that's an example of positive reinforcement backfiring. And children praised for their intelligence are also more likely to perform worse in future tasks. So this is the research that was done on children, and this was the results that they found. And I very much believe that grown-ups, adults, work in kind of similar ways too. You know, we feel a boost from being praised about our talents, our intelligence, our cleverness, and then we seek that sort of praise again by looking for examples of classes that we can take or things that we can do to get that praise again. That's exactly it, Sheila. Some teachers find it really hard to get out of their comfort zone. And so they stay in the comfort zone because they have got so much praise before. You know, everyone says I'm so good at teacher training, so I'm just going to stick to teacher training. So instead, if you're giving feedback to trainees, to teachers as a manager, and even to students, consider praising the effort. Praise the strategy that they're using. Maybe don't say you are clever, but the strategy you've chosen is extremely clever. The way you've gone about solving this problem is really, really clever. Praise their good use of resources, how resourceful they are in finding solutions to problems. And definitely praise their perseverance. Praise the fact that they have come up against a wall, they've come up against a problem, and they persevered. They kept going. They did not give up because it was tough. Praise that. And definitely praise experimentation. You see teachers trying new things, trying things that they're not familiar with, trying things that you've never seen before in your school, in your staff room. Praise that. If you see fellow colleagues trying out a method that nobody ever uses, praise that. Because that is contributing to a growth mindset, not just an individual growth mindset, but a growth mindset of the staff room. Because if your staff room is filled with teachers with growth mindsets, encouraging each other, praising each other for experimentation, praising each other for perseverance, and supporting each other, then you've got a staff room that is really and truly growing in all directions possible. Here's an example of giving students feedback. You're not very good at teaching grammar. Now, instead of saying that, how about asking questions? How do you feel about your ability to teach grammar? So you've got a teacher trainee coming on the CELTA, for example, or coming on a teacher training course you're running, and they say, oh, I hate grammar, I can't teach grammar. How about asking questions? What do you think you can do to improve this? Because someone with a growth mindset is not going to just sit back and say, yeah, you're not good at it, forget about it. No, someone with a growth mindset is going to say, no, you're not good at it now. You're not good at it yet, but you can become good at it. So what can you do to improve it? And also, what can I do to help you improve? What can I do to support your improvement, your development in teaching grammar? And this is something that I think that teachers, teacher trainers, and managers ought to really be saying. What can I do to support you, to help you develop? So when giving feedback, ask questions. Ask what they think they can improve. Ask how they think they can improve. And what I can do as a trainer, as a manager, what I can do, and even as a colleague in the staff room, what I can do to help you develop and improve. And of course, as we said earlier in the webinar, motivation is key. Interest is key. So don't force colleagues or teachers or trainees to do something. Don't start with something that they're disinterested in. Start with something that they are interested in. Just to answer Adam, you said, what if they don't have an answer? I think that from my experience, when I ask teachers, what do you think you can improve on? When they don't have an answer, it's sometimes because they think there's a right answer and a wrong answer, and they're afraid of giving the wrong answer. So they kind of go, oh, I don't know. What did you tell me? Exactly, Jane. Let them think about it. Ask them questions that will encourage them to, one, see that there is no right or wrong answer, because whatever the answer is, you are there to support them, not there to judge them. That's a very important thing. Okay. And two, questions to help them think through their teaching, the time in the classroom, the relationship with the students, to guide them to coming up with an answer of their own, and then giving them time to answer. So questions to analyze their teaching, to come up with an answer, time to analyze and reflect, and reassurance that you're not judging them. There is no right or wrong answer. I talked about staff room and how important it is to grow together, to have a staff room filled with teachers who can grow together. I remember when I did my Delta many years back, and one of my colleagues was someone who was teaching at a university. And she was lamenting the fact that she was the only person in the entire staff room who was interested in professional development. She was complaining about the fact that her colleagues were making kind of snide comments about her doing the Delta. They were saying things like, why are you doing a diploma in teaching? Are you not confident about your teaching? Why are you trying to develop? Are you not good enough? And it was kind of interesting to hear that, because I felt really, truly sorry for her that her colleagues had that sort of mentality towards improving, developing, towards taking courses to become better. And I think if you're a manager, or if you are someone with a lot of influence in your staff room, you can actually slowly and gradually change that culture in the staff room. You can help to create a culture that welcomes feedback, that doesn't go, oh, feedback means you're going to criticize me. No, I don't want you to observe me. I actually know of a teacher who doesn't want to be observed at all, for example. We want a culture where you're asking for feedback. You know, you're not just waiting for the day that your manager says, I'm going to come pop by into your classroom, and you're like, oh, it's all doom and gloom. No, you want your members of staff to say, give me feedback, come and observe me, come and watch my lesson. Oh, I love that. Yes, Jim Scrivener said, if you're tired of learning, you're tired of teaching. Fantastic. So how can we do this? As a manager, if you're a manager of a staff room, if you're a director of studies, set a good example. Ask for feedback. Yes, ask for feedback as a manager. How am I doing as a manager? Am I giving clear instructions? Am I supporting you enough in what you want to do? Encourage teachers to ask for feedback, and make it very clear when they ask for feedback that this is not a chance for you to hit them with criticisms, but it's a chance for you to develop together. Encourage peer observation and peer feedback. I used to work at International House London for many years, and one of the wonderful things that they did is to have an open door policy. An open door policy in classrooms, where teachers are allowed to pop into each other's classrooms to watch classes out of developmental reasons, curiosity. So whenever I wasn't teaching, if I had a free moment, if my students didn't turn up for my one-to-one class, I could just pop in to the teachers who have opened their doors. So we used to have a notice board in the staff room and it says, open door policy, and if you are happy for people to pop into your class to observe your class, you put your name up on the board. It would be awful for it to be illegal to observe other lessons, Jane. That's so sad. Now, one of the things that people are afraid of opening their doors is that they are afraid of criticism. So one thing that you can do if you're a manager or if you're trying to implement an open door policy is you start by setting the rule, no negative criticisms. If you're going to come in and watch a lesson, you can give positive reinforcements, but no negative criticisms. You're not there to judge, you are there to learn. And you start observations with that basis. People observing are there to learn, not to judge. And then once the staff room, the teachers, feel comfortable with opening their doors to observations, then you could slowly start to introduce constructive criticism. But I think it's really important that everybody feels comfortable that they are not going to be criticized if they open their doors. Coach teachers, talk to them about the growth mindset. You're all here today listening to this webinar. Give the same talk to your teachers. Have a teacher development session and talk to them about the growth mindset. Tell them what it is. Watch Carol Dweck's TED Talk on the growth mindset together in the staff room. Now, we talked a lot about giving feedback, but sometimes it is hard getting feedback. And, it is human nature, isn't it? It's human nature to get defensive, to fight. It's that fight or flight mode we get into when we think we're being criticized. You either want to kind of hide your head under the sand, cover your head up and go, oh yeah, or you want to run away. You want to fight and go like, no, she said I talk too much in class, but I'm a teacher. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to talk so that students can learn. And you get really defensive and really, angry when you get negative feedback. So having a growth mindset is to take a step back. Is taking a step back and reconsidering your reactions to the feedback. To say, hey, this could be a learning opportunity. What could be the benefits of talking less? How else might students learn? So when you're getting feedback, it is also important to not be oversensitive and overreactive. If it is your instinct, and we can't avoid our instincts, if it is your instinct to fight, to get defensive, reflect on that. Know that you tend to fight and get defensive. Take a step back, breathe, count to 10, and rethink. What will a person with a growth mindset say? Is this an opportunity to grow? Could I do something about this? Now, someone said here, I really like this comment. It says feedbacks must be accepted as good or bad. I think Rodell, you said that, but I can't seem to read it. Sorry, Rodell. I'm trying to read your comment again. Basically, Rodell was saying that it is important that the person giving the feedback, the teacher or the trainer giving the feedback, to give it kind of the right way. Because if a trainer is too negative about giving feedback, it can really demotivate the teacher in question, the person receiving the feedback. And no matter how much of a growth mindset someone has, if you hit them with really, really negative feedback, like, you're just so terrible at this. You're just, always really bad with time management. If you make comments like that, it's really hard for a teacher to have a growth mindset sometimes. So it's a two-way thing. The person giving the feedback and the person receiving the feedback have to kind of support each other. Feedback doesn't have to be just good or bad, because so-called bad, negative feedback can be good. It can be, you're very good at this. What is the next step we can take it to? Because no one's perfect. So you're very, very good at teaching grammar. How can we get you even better at teaching grammar? How can we take you on to the next step of your development? So it's not just bad and good feedback. It's not as clear-cut as that sometimes. Feedback can be good and bad, or rather, let's say constructive and good mixed together. A few of you said you really like the word yet. And that's a very important part of giving feedback. You're not good at it, but you're not good at it yet. And you will become good at it. How can we all work together to help you be better? The power of yet. Carol Dweck talks about school report cards, and instead of having pass and fail, having or good or bad, having good and not yet. I suppose that's a kind of a novel way of looking at it. You're not bad, you're just not good yet. So let's work harder. Let's work towards getting good. And I think when you think about yet, you start to see learning as a journey. You start to see it as a climb, not just black or white, good or bad. You see it as a climb moving towards getting better and developing. So let's talk a bit about continuing your professional development. What motivates you to develop? What kind of training is provided by your organization? Or is professional development something you take on as an individual? Does your organization, your school, your institution, do they provide training for you? Is there a platform for reflection in your organization? Are you encouraged to explore new ideas? Experimentation, like we said. Are you encouraged to conduct research? Now, we talk a lot about action research in the classroom these days. Part of developing is teachers taking it upon themselves to conduct research, small scale, classroom-based research. So here are some things that we could do in the staff room to try and develop ourselves, to try and develop our colleagues, and if you're a manager, to try and develop and create a culture of development, of growth mindset in the staff room. I'm going to talk to you very briefly in the next 10 minutes about peer-led development, reading groups, tech groups, staff room debates, mutual observations, which we touched briefly on earlier, and practical sharing sessions. Okay, so let's start with peer-led development. Now, what we're talking about here is not inviting an expert from the outside of the school to come and give a talk, but having teachers help each other, colleagues help each other to give sessions to each other. So, for example, where I used to work at International House, we used to have a development session every Wednesday. So at lunchtime every Wednesday, we would bring our sandwiches into a room and we'll eat our lunch in a room. And each week, a different teacher, a different colleague would take a session on a different topic. The topic could be connected to teaching. Like it could be a session on grammar or pronunciation or task-based learning. It could even be a session about something different, like how to recycle better in the staff room. And that way, each week, a different teacher takes on the responsibility of developing their co-workers. And we learn from each other that way. Now, just to throw this in, if you want to really have a growth mindset and develop, how about taking on a topic that you are not familiar with? As a manager, if you have a teacher coming to you and saying, I'm really not very good at teaching grammar, how about saying to them, brilliant, how about we have you lead a teacher development session in 1 month's time, and you're going to teach the teachers in our staff room about teaching grammar. Of course, the instant reaction is going to be like, oh, I'm not good at grammar, and you want me to teach other teachers to teach grammar? But you know what? The best way to become good at something is to start teaching other people that something. And of course, you can allay those fears as a manager by saying, don't worry, I will support you and I will help you, but you are going to lead that session and you are going to teach us how to teach grammar. So yes, a lot of you have said in the chat box that some of you have teacher development sessions in your school, you have teacher meetings in your school. So let's inject this additional idea. How about having teachers who are not experts, teachers who want to develop in a particular area to lead that development. So don't just lead sessions that you're good at. Lead sessions that you're not so good at. Reading groups. So similar to teacher development sessions, you could break into smaller groups and you could each read materials and get them to come together like a book club and share what you've read. Now, there's so much free stuff out there as well as paid stuff that you could read. So, take for example blogs. Now, you've got over here, you can see, I'm going to use this pointer. Um, you've got Film English, okay, and then you've got ELT Planning. Now, these are two blogs. Film English is a blog that looks by Kieran Donaghy that has lesson plans, free lesson plans for using short films to teach English. Over here you have ELT Planning, another very fantastic blog that gives you lots of tips about teaching and ideas about teaching. So you know what, you could explore. Say, for example, this week, Sheila, you're going to take Film English, and Craig, you're going to take ELT Planning, and perhaps Jane, you're going to take Listen to Maxims, and we're all going to explore those blogs on our own, and then on Wednesday, we're going to come together at lunchtime. We're going to eat our lunch together, and we're going to discuss the blogs that we've explored, what we've learned from those blogs, whether they're worth, becoming a regular feature in our talks or not, etc., etc. So having reading groups with a twist. So you could read articles or you could just explore blogs. Of course, I couldn't talk about blogs without talking about my own blog. So I blog for English Teaching Professional, right at the bottom over here. And I've been blogging for them since 2012. So if you look at the archive, if you go to features and click my name, you will get an archive of all the blog posts I've written once every fortnight for the last 7 years. So those are also examples of what you can do with reading groups. A little twist to reading groups is tech groups. You could have teachers exploring a particular new technology and then coming together to discuss how it worked for them. So for example, again, Sheila, you could take Google Groups and try it with your class. Jane, you could take Quizlet and try that with your class. Craig, you could take Vimeo and try that with your class. Margarita, you take SurveyMonkey and try that with your class, etc., etc. And everyone goes off, tries a little bit of tech, comes back, meets together at lunchtime, and talk about the thing that you've tried out. Is it suitable? Is it not suitable? Why is it suitable? Why is it not suitable? If it's not suitable, how can we make it suitable? What can we do to work it into our lessons so that it's going to contribute to pedagogy, so that it's going to contribute to learning? So tech groups as a variation on reading groups. Staff room debates are always a fun one. It happens quite naturally when you're sitting around having lunch in the staff room and you get into a debate about a particular topic. You can actually have a more organized debate. I wrote this blog post, as you can see on the screen now, about pre-teaching, and it's all about the dangers of pre-teaching. I wrote it last year, as you can see, and even until now, that blog post is accessed quite a lot. It gets a lot of hits. And I get messages and emails from teachers telling me that it's a great source of staff room debates, because people would read this article and then debate furiously in the staff room because people have such different opinions about pre-teaching. Mutual observations we talked about, the advantage of having an open door policy where we can watch each other and learn from each other. And finally, practical sharing sessions. So, for example, you could have each teacher taking on a different method of teaching, whether it be Cuisenaire rods or treasure hunts or Edward de Bono's 6 hats, or teaching critical thinking skills or negotiation, or using a particular board game. Do something in a practical way, come back, share it in the staff room. Talk about how it went, whether it worked well or not. So to end this webinar, as promised, I've got a few links here for you. I've got a TED Talk to start with. It's Carol Dweck's TED Talk, The Power of Believing That You Can Improve. And it's a great talk to start if you are unfamiliar with the growth mindset, or if you want to introduce growth mindset to your teachers in the staff room. This is a great TED Talk to show them. The book that some of you have said you've read in the chat box, Mindset Works, is a great book, How You Can Fulfill Your Potential. And that's a book by Carol Dweck. It's a great book to, again, get you started on thinking about mindset. I've also written, sorry for the shameless plug, but I've written 2 blog posts about growth mindset. The first one, Are You Encouraging a Growth Mindset?, is focused on encouraging our students to have a growth mindset. The second one, Are You Developing a Growth Mindset in Your Staff Room?, is about encouraging your colleagues or your staff to have a growth mindset. So a slightly different perspective. And today we've been talking mainly on the second one, which is about encouraging a growth mindset in the staff room. And with that, I would like to thank you for coming here today. I am available on Twitter and LinkedIn, and as I said, I blog for etprofessional.com. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them there. Thank you very much.